All right, welcome back to the show, folks. Time to talk some local politics and what is becoming a signature race to watch. But first, we want to finish out with our last segment. We talked about race a bit in politics and how, with the GOP party, they're not really resonating with African Americans, anywhere from 0 to 2%. You wanted some closing comments?
Just very quickly, I think it's a short-term and a long-term problem for Republicans. In the short term, when George W. Bush ran, I think he received something like 40% of the Latino vote. The Republicans are not going to get that this time around. They dropped in 2008. It'll probably be less even now. African-American vote is the same thing. So the party, I think, though, also has a long-term problem when it comes to people of color, which can really be, damaging to the party in terms of its long-term interests. Otherwise, it becomes a party that's essentially made up of whites, and I think that's where the party is really moving towards.
All right. I'm going to segue to local politics. Linda McMahon shaking things up. Local polls now showing that she's ahead versus Chris Murphy, a race that is being watched nationally. A lot of money coming in. It's going to get very nasty. Your thoughts on that? You guys, whoever wants to chime in first, this race is going to be a hot one to watch.
Well, it is going to be closer, I think, than people had initially thought.
Did the poll surprise you?
A little bit, although there were polls in 2010 that showed the race really tightening up, and then at the end it basically went back to what it had been most of the year. The problem is that the polls that they take at this time of year, I'm not sure they're all that accurate in some cases. And so you get these little fluctuations. Depends on who's on vacation versus who's answering the phone at home when the pollsters call and that sort of thing. But I think that the numbers for President Obama, which are lower than I was expecting to see as well, indicates, if it's a trend, that this is going to be a much more competitive state than it has been in the past. And I think that it's something that all Republicans could benefit, including the Republican candidate for Congress, Rohrabaugh, in the 5th District, that this could be a really competitive race. I think he's got a very good chance anyway, but if you don't have a blowout landslide at the top of the ticket, that makes life a lot easier for folks down ticket.
What's different this time? Go ahead.
The polls have solidified. In other words, both the Quinnipiac poll and the Rasmussen poll both had 49-46 McMahon over Murphy.
Right.
That tells you that two completely different polls basically have come in on the same thing. On the presidential race, one had a 7-point spread, Quinnipiac, and Rasmussen had an 8-point spread. So you can kind of take these polls, if they were wildly off, then you wouldn't really know. Granted, as Art's saying, the polls can change over time, but at the moment, right now, I think those polls are probably fairly accurate. For the moment, they can change with the debates, they can change with a whole lot of things.
With the margin of error, basically pick them still, right?
Right. Yeah, I think it really is a very tight race. What's interesting, though, is that Linda McMahon, certainly since 2009, she's probably pumped about $64 million of her own money into running for the Senate. And if you really think about the last few months, with the competition that occurred on the Republican side, she ran a lot of ads, and so a lot of people got to see her. She certainly has tried to redefine herself in a way that's different from what she did the last time around. She's doing much better among women than she did the previous run. And so, clearly here's a candidate who has tried to redefine herself, and it's helped her in being able to do that. And I think the other part of this, I think some of this also is at the presidential level, where the enthusiasm is not where it was in 2008, for example, with Obama. And I think the problem of those coattails not sort of dragging along and helping in the 5th District or the senatorial race can be a problem for Democrats in the state if people don't get excited about this presidential run the way they did 4 years ago.
Last time with McMahon, she had high unlikability. When more people saw her, the more they disliked her last time around. Now she's flipped the script. What do you attribute that to? Because she has put more money into the ads, but what has now changed the dynamic where people seem to be liking her more, where last time the more they saw her, the more they disliked her?
She's been hitting a lot in the ads that she was bankrupt. She's talking about being a grandmother. It's a totally different angle. She never mentions wrestling or says she was in the entertainment business.
Well,
but in other words,
will, though, right?
yeah, he will. Murphy will, no doubt. But in other words, I'm a grandmother. I was bankrupt. I'm like you. I became successful, but I wasn't born successful. Right. I was growing up. I wasn't really successful. I didn't have a lot of money. I'm just like you. I became bankrupt, et cetera, et cetera. It's a totally different image. It's a new image. And the other thing you have to remember is Chris Murphy is not Dick Blumenthal. Blumenthal had 20 years of popularity in Connecticut. He's name recognition and everything. Murphy is not Blumenthal. Can Murphy boost his name recognition? Of course. He'll be running his own ads for 2 months.
I don't think Murphy has ran a really effective campaign up to this
Right.
point. I mean, he's been on the defense to a couple of her ads, but he hasn't really done a lot in terms of ad-wise. I see a lot of Linda McMahon commercials. I don't
Right.
see a lot of Chris Murphy ads.
But it's hard to fight back when they say that you're not going to work, right? The big ad she's running is that he's not showing up for the job, and so that seems to be resonating to some degree. We got about 30 seconds left, real quick now. Elizabeth Esty, Andrew Rohrabach, another hot race in Connecticut. Your thoughts on how that shakes up? A lot of money coming in for that one, too.
Well, I think it's going to be a very competitive race, and I think that Andrew Rohrabach has a very good chance of winning this race, but it's one that could go either way. But it's the fact that a Republican is once again competitive in the 5th District is a big step in the right direction.
That's a big deal for you, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's
where I live.
All right, real quick.
The
He is the longest standing Republican in the House, so that's impressive. Now, real quick, politics. Sharon Palmer, former union head, been named by the governor as the new labor chief. Your thoughts on that? That is an appointment that reeks of pure politics. What does that mean, Keating?
She got a huge round of ovation when she was announced. A lot of union people are happy.
Right.
AFSCME, Larry Dorman's happy. There's a lot of union people happy. There's Democrats who are happy. Kevin Sullivan's happy. She's 68 years old, and she's going to be the new labor commissioner. Not the first of the Malloy administration, but she'll be the new labor commissioner for about the next 2 years.
All right, we got it run. Folks, thanks for your time. Thanks to all our guests, Scott Gray, Bill Saku, Arthur O'Neill, Chris Keating. Don't forget, catch our show 247ct.com/Stan. Friend us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter for the good folks here at Fox Connecticut. I'm Stan Simpson. The morning news is next.